Congratulating the President of the session, Professor Tijani, the Secretary General of UN, Antonio Guterres, the President gave his 74th keynote address of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. President Uhuru Kenyatta started by giving out the theme for the year's session, saying that galvanizing multilateral efforts for poverty eradication, quality education, climate action and inclusion is timely. He went ahead saying that this helps to engage a range of complex and intertwined global challenges that confront humanity today. He made notice that everyone has a solemn duty to ensure the world is a better place for future generations and that we must bequeath our children a political, stable, environmental, health and social cohesive world. President Kenyatta said that the envisaged prosperous future calls all to take bold actions that give meaning to the theme of the session of the General Assembly. In that regard, the President reflected on a number of actions that can contribute to the desired future. First, to put people at the core of development and must support our populations, particularly the youth, to be productively engaged, to shape the future and not to fall victim to it. In regard to that, the President emphasized that we must accelerate the implementation of the SDGs. Critical to that is the generation of big disaggregated data to help us plan, target interventions and to monitor implementation. 2. Kenya has heavily invested in education and health in an effort to achieve social inclusion, develop knowledge and competencies, and secure the future by not leaving anyone behind. The President gave some of the improvements made in education and health sectors. His Excellency then went ahead to discuss on sustainable peace, where he made note that development takes place when there is sustainable peace. In Horn of African region, a complexity of factors has in the last 3 or so decades led to the multi-layered threats to peace. In the same spirit, President Kenyatta said that his administration continues to reach out to the Federal Republic of Somalia in an effort to find an amicable and sustainable solution to find to the maritime boundary dispute with Kenya. In regard to that, he welcomed the decision of the African Union Peace and Security Council of the 3rd September 2019 that urges both parties to engage while still hopeful that the federal government of Somalia will be amiable and committed to search for a mutually accepted and sustainable solution to these disputes. President Kenyatta emphasized on the act of coming together to protect our shared destiny, saying the pressure from population growth, diminishing resources and climate change put stress on natural resources such as water, food, arable land and energy. He urged the leaders to turn to sustainable resource management models to help restore the balance in our ecosystem. He then congratulated the Secretary General for convening the Climate Action Summit. On the 5th point, President Uhuru said the other way to secure a better future is financing for development. We need an esteemed US $2.5 to 3 trillion annually to finance SDGs and climate action and target the critical needs of our populations. He went ahead saying that we need to introduce innovative financial models that reorientates private capital, create new investments and modalities that strengthen framework to the risk investments. The use of technology was also another way that the President made emphasis on saying digital revolution offers opportunities to accelerate achievement in multiple ways. Finally, His Excellency said the agenda outlined requires not less partnerships, not less collaborations and international cooperation. He therefore emphasized the need to re-energize and reform the multilateral system in order to guarantee our common future. The President thanked the African Union for the endorsement of Kenya's candidature of the United Nations Security Council for the year 2021 to 2022. In conclusion, he invited all to Kenya in November this year for the Nairobi Summit on the International Conference on Population and Development, saying it was an opportunity to affirm the recognition of people's rights, choices, and well-being as a path to sustainable and integrated development.
The theme for this year's session, galvanizing multilateral efforts for poverty eradication, quality education, climate action, and inclusion, is timely. It helps us to engage a range of complex and intertwined global challenges that confront humanity today. We collectively have a solemn duty to ensure that the world is a better place for future generations. We must bequeath our children a politically stable, environmentally healthy, and socially cohesive world. We, the leaders gathered in this great hall, are and must be the bridge to that future world. Our actions today will determine whether that future will be bleak, depleted of resources, with higher poverty levels, and fragmented, warring nations. Or, on the other hand, our actions today will bestow upon our children better living standards, prosperous, vibrant, and cohesive societies endowed with sustainably managed resources. Mr. President, never have we, the global leaders, faced such a stark choice: to either redeem the future or to destroy it. The envisioned prosperous future calls us all to take bold actions that give meaning to the theme of the General Assembly. In this regard, allow me, Mr. President, to reflect on a number of actions that can contribute to the desired future. First, we must put people at the core of development. We must support our populations, particularly the youth, to be productively engaged, to shape the future, and not to fall victim to it. In this regard, we must accelerate the implementation of the SDGs. Critical to this is the generation of big, disaggregated data to help us plan targeted interventions and to monitor. We have heavily invested in education and health in an effort to achieve social inclusion, develop knowledge and competencies, and to secure the future by not leaving anyone behind. We have now achieved 100% transition from primary to secondary school and free secondary school education for all day scholars. To enhance equal opportunity, we have also provided re-entry for girls who drop out of school after falling pregnant. We provide free sanitary towels to all school-going girls, and Kenya's children now enjoy an average of 10.7 years of schooling, the highest in our region. To drive our economy, Kenya is tackling the burden of diseases and is on the path to achieving universal health coverage by 2022. We provide access to a health benefits package that prioritizes primary health care interventions, reduces the cost of medicines, and increases the number of people with insurance cover. I want at this opportunity to thank the African Union for the endorsement of Kenya's candidature to the Security Council for the year 2021-2022, and our pursuit for solutions to global challenges convinces us that we are well placed to contribute constructively in the Security Council. When the world had given up on our region, we in Kenya opened our doors to millions of people fleeing insecurity. To this day, we remain hosts to hundreds of thousands of refugees. Our investment in the Sudan negotiations led to the comprehensive peace agreement in 2005, and we continue to support stabilization efforts in both Sudan and South Sudan. When the world had turned away from Somalia, we engaged and invested in the Eldoret and Baghdadi peace processes that led to the formation and hosting of the transitional national government in Kenya, that ultimately led to the formation of the transitional federal government in Somalia. We have over the years contributed more than 40,000 peacekeepers and engaged in post-conflict reconstruction and development efforts across the world. We therefore hope that our experience, our competencies, and unrelenting search for peace and prosperity in our neighborhood, on our continent, and the wider world will persuade the entire UN membership to support the African Union candidate for the non-permanent seat of the United Nations Security Council during the elections slated for June of 2020. I request for the vote of each and every member of our United Nations family. You cannot have development without sustainable peace. In the Horn of Africa region, a complexity of factors has in the last 3 or so decades led to multi-layered threats to peace. These are exacerbated by the disruptive effects of climate change, introducing ecological vulnerabilities to a very delicate security context. The ability of terrorist organizations to execute their plans with impunity has introduced another dimension to the security terrain in our region. Mr. President, the commitment to pursue peace and security remains at the core of our foreign policy. And I am pleased to say that combined efforts to advance peace and security in the region continue to bear fruit. I take this opportunity to congratulate the Sudan for coming to a path of sustainable peace, which they negotiated amongst themselves with the help of the African Union. Kenya shares the optimism of the people of the Sudan, and we believe the transitional process will pave the way for democratic elections in 2022. I also warmly commend the role of women of the Sudan for driving and facilitating this most satisfactory and lessons-laden outcome that makes the entire African continent proud. I am also encouraged by progress made in South Sudan. Security has improved with a decrease in violence across the country since the signing of the revitalized peace agreement. And I am convinced the pending issues can be resolved in a consultative and collaborative manner. I commend Dr. Riek Machar for traveling to Juba for the face-to-face meeting with his brother and colleague, President Salva Kiir, to engage on the outstanding issues. Kenya supports the creation of an all-inclusive transitional mechanism and institutions to undertake the required political process and reforms. This will ensure a smooth transition to the next phase of the peace process. My administration continues to reach out to the Federal Republic of Somalia in an effort to find an amicable and sustainable solution to the maritime boundary disputes between us. In this regard, I welcome the decision of the African Union Peace and Security Council of the 3rd September 2019 that urges both parties to engage. As we all know, the UN Charter privileges the use of negotiation as the most preferred mechanism for settlement of disputes. Similarly, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea provides for the delimitation of maritime boundaries between states amicably. It is in this normative framework that Kenya calls for the resolution of this dispute through negotiation. And we remain hopeful that the federal government of Somalia will be amenable and committed to the search for a mutually acceptable and sustainable solution to this dispute.